My guest this evening is Ewan Aitken, the Chief Executive Officer of the well-regarded 50-year-old charity Serenians. Ewan, thank you for joining me again. I've
Pleasure.
been reading your blog with great interest because during this pandemic, I know many people are feeling down. They're feeling sad. Some are suffering from situational depression, some are suffering from clinical depression, but there's no question that it has impacted people's mental health. Now, you've written candidly on your blog about your battles with depression and how sometimes, seemingly, the most successful people, like yourself and myself, I might add, can experience the challenge of depression. You mind telling me about your experience?
So, Joe, it's good to be here, and it's good to grapple with issues of the human condition. Um, my experience is that the connection there isn't really a connection between depression and success, because success in other people's eyes isn't the significant thing. It's how we feel about ourselves. And often the most successful people can be the people most disconnected from any celebration of who they are. For me, grappling with depression was related to a whole set of experiences I had and it took me years to work this out when I was younger, which took me to a place where believing that I could be a constructive contributor to life was a challenge. And although I was able to do good things, even the act of saying it's good sometimes is uncomfortable. I'm at the heart of Scottish Presbyterian. We don't really say such things. But there would be moments in my life when I just ceased to believe in myself. And that was when I needed to do what I eventually did, and have done so since on a number of occasions, was to ask for help. The biggest challenge is understanding that you're not the only one, and that by reaching out, you not only can help yourself, but you can help in continuing the conversation so others feel brave enough to help out as well, or find the courage, or whatever the phrase is. That for me is the most important thing. You're not on your own. This is part of the human reality for many people, but folk are willing to help, and they will not write you off. On the contrary, they want to get beside you.
Thank you for that. You know, it's interesting, Scottish Presbyterian, Jewish. In my family, my father always said, Jews have to be better than everybody else. We're minorities. We are discriminated against. You have to work harder, be better, be more honorable than everyone else. That's a very hard banner to wave every day of your life. So I had many challenging times growing up, and I know you've had a few within your life. What's helped you through these times?
Um, it's always been like the quality of relationships I've been in a position to have. Um, I mean, I don't think there are Presbyterian saints, but if there was Presbyterian saints, my wife would be a shoo-in for coping with this long. But the quality of relationships, people who have stuck with me no matter what, they do not need to be many, they just need to be there. And that's true not just for me, but for most people. I don't know, you know about adverse childhood experiences, ACEs, this thing we talk about, you know, describing the roots of young people's trauma. Interestingly, and if you there's an argument that if you experience several of these, you know, addiction, family violence, poverty, etc., you're more likely to end up in a difficult place. No, that's helpful, but there are dangers with that. But what's interesting is that about 10% of people who experience quite significant traumatic experiences actually do okay. And Swansea University did a study of why that was. And what they discovered that the common factor was all those individuals had somebody they could turn to. It wasn't a professional in the sense that that was the professional's job. It was just an adult, a trusted adult, who was just always there. Didn't try and fix them, was just there. A teacher, a scout leader, a football coach, somebody's granny, just somebody who they could depend on. That capacity to be in relationship is the thing that will take you through, because in the other person's humanity, you begin to see the potential for you to be at one with your own humanity.
I so agree. You know, there was a wonderful motivational author named Dale Carnegie in the United States. And Dale Carnegie was once asked to help a woman who was very sad and very depressed about her life. Her husband had left her, she had lost a child, and she just couldn't pick herself up. And she said, "What do I do, Mr. Carnegie?" He said, "Find someone who's worse off than you and start to help them." And do you know, by doing this, she helped herself back out of depression to a more balanced life. So one of the things that I find that I do when I get very upset about the pandemic, about the protests that are going on, the inequality in the world, is I either sit down and write a check or go online and make a donation to help a charity, or I pick up the telephone and volunteer, such as with the program the Edinburgh Interfaith Association is running now, called Time to Talk listening service, where people from care homes can call us and they have a friendly listening ear. So I wonder, how does a man like you, the chief executive of Serenians, how do you stay inspired about your work right now during these difficult times where budgets are having to be reduced, staff is having to be furloughed, programs are having to be paused? How do you stay inspired?
And my colleagues are just the most extraordinary individuals. You know, we've completely reconfigured our services. We've shifted from doing cooking classes to producing meals. And over 2 days of the week, on a Saturday and Sunday, they produced 2,576 meals to go out to folk in need. We've shifted. We're shifting 5 times the normal food we normally do through our fair share operation. We're supporting folk in hotels who were rough sleeping. We've completely reconfigured how we deliver services to the point of our employability program. We've actually got it online, reaccredited, and people have got into jobs during this pandemic. That's been entirely done by my colleagues. And one of the ways it works is that I trust my colleagues because we understand the values by which we operate. So in all those cases, none of them have said, "Ewan, is it okay?" What they've said is, "This is what we should do because I know Ewan, that's what Ewan would want us to do." And they've got on with it. So I'm inspired by that creativity and that willing to just reach out and do incredible things, and knowing that what my contribution has been is to create a context in which people feel they can just crack on and they don't need to be held back. So that's absolutely what keeps me going.
So one of the things I hear you saying is, as a leader, what you've done throughout your career and life is surround yourself with inspiring people, with people that you can turn to for support, for ideas, and I would say for compassion. I'll never forget the first time I sat at your table in your office and I looked over your shoulder and I saw that poster of the values of Serenians: compassion, respect, integrity, and innovation. What impressed me is it was the only third sector charity I'd ever seen whose first value was compassion. How did that happen?
It just seemed the right thing to do. I'd never really thought about it. It just was. It's absolutely crucial. And finally, if I remember that first time, and we had that long conversation where we discovered so much in common. One might have seen us as very different people, but we have so much in common because we're both concerned with those values. I mean, I've always had a leadership principle, which is you surround yourself by people who are better at the job that they do than you would be, and always have time. The most important thing is when the question is, have you got a minute? The answer is always yes, because that minute can be so crucial for that individual. But it's not just what you talk about; it's the fact that moment they felt the most important thing in your life as their leader or their boss or whatever the phrase is. And that's crucial in the nature of that relationship. In terms of compassion, we know that at the heart of any quality trusted relationship is compassion. Compassion, not just for the individual's particular circumstance, but for the individual as themselves. And in expressing that and simply getting beside somebody, not to fix them or do something to them or to sort out their lives, but simply to be beside them, is a deep expression of compassion that then becomes returned. Constantly fascinates me by the number of folk whom we support, who when they get to a place where they're thinking, right, I'm ready to move on myself, what they say is, the support you gave me, it wasn't what you did, it was how you did it. And we always knew you'd never give up. And that, and they are so often being let down by people who say, oh, you didn't turn up, so you're barred or whatever. We never give up. And that is that's the kind of articulation of compassion, the embodiment of compassion.
I love that concept of never, never, never give up, which of course was Mr. Churchill, right? Yeah. Never give up. Do you have any recommendation, Ewan, as we conclude this, for folks who are leading organizations regarding their ability to develop positive mental health skills right now to see us through this difficult time? And of course, we know, having lived long lives, you and I, there'll be more difficult times in the future. So in this time, do you have any recommendations for our viewers?
One of the interesting things about leadership is that there is a kind of an assumption, and we have somebody in the White House at the moment who embodies this, that you have to be big and strong and hard and know every answer. One of the fascinating experiences I've had in this pandemic has been to realize my vulnerability. Now that comes, at least in part, through somebody talked about it. It's also a health thing. I've had to socially isolate because I've got asthma and high blood pressure, so I have to stay safe. And coming to terms with my vulnerability in a way that I haven't had to before. I had to face it. I had to face the fact that I had to ask colleagues to go and do things that I was no longer in a position to go and do. Was both a difficult experience, but also a liberating experience, because it meant I was authentically myself. So in that, in being willing to admit you're vulnerable, you will discover a level of authenticity in who you are, rather than a performance that you think other people expect you to be, that will allow you to make decisions that are the right ones, because they'll be rooted in the human condition rather than in a set of other people's expectations.
Such profound words. And as I said earlier, it's been such a great privilege serving with you on the board for many years of the Edinburgh Chamber of Commerce and seeing your wisdom and, as I said earlier, your compassion for this great city that you helped lead. Ewan, on behalf of the Edinburgh Interfaith Association, thank you for sharing with us your thoughts and these important values. May they all lead us from strength to strength. Thanks again.
So it's been a pleasure. Great to see you again. Thank you very much.